It is.
Like, I mean, you want to know my favorite part about this boat as a short guy? This is seriously the first large center console that I've ever been able to stand behind the helm
And see over
without
the console.
like a little step up, see over the console, and actually still see the bow.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That was the first thing I noticed when I got here, because I always noticed that about other boats. You jump on a bunch of different boats and see that. Like, I'm like, I can't see over anything.
Yeah, and then if you were Ridge's size, he's shorter than both of
Well,
them.
We
I
might need a
don't
little
think we're
step
that far
box.
off. But
So
yeah,
Ridge
I'm
needs
not
the
that
box.
far off. Yeah.
But it's okay.
The fit and finish on this is incredible. So,
It is great.
Yeah, and it's nice. And it's kind of, this is the first time I've ever done a podcast like I'm lounging out like that. So
just chilling out.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So y'all are with Front Runner now,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
right? So take me through that relationship. I mean, you got your 36 over there, the Murphy's Law.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And it's on display here at the show,
Right.
right? And tell me a little bit about that.
So it's a 36 center console mono hull, not a cat. You know, Front Runner makes both cats and mono hulls, and so it's a 36 with triple 350s.
Nice.
And then on the electronics package, we have two 22-inch Garmin
Yes, sir.
9000 series, which is the latest, greatest. And then we've got all the cool taco outriggers and the antenna mounts and the stern mounts, where you can just simply, as you're idling into the marina, you're
Cranking
turning a
everything
crank
down.
and everything's going down, so that you don't have to stand on the gunnel and put your outriggers down. And so, I mean, the boat's got a Rodan 36 volt, which since they started making trolling motors with long enough shafts to hold a center console into 15 mile an hour worth of wind in a 2-foot seat, we're able now to get exactly where we want to get on the wreck or on a ledge and push a button and we're anchored there. And there's not, you know, in 150, 200 feet of water, 400 feet of water, you're putting out an anchor rope there, you can miss 10 times on a spot. Now with a
100%, yeah.
trolling motor holding you exactly where you want, so that you can make the right presentation with your bait and your lead and your jig if you're jigging. It's a game changer, and that's what Rodan's
guys that are-
120-inch shaft motors do for you.
The guys that are consistently anchoring every day, they're getting an extra 3 hours a day just by not having to pull the anchor.
That's great.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if you think
outstanding.
about it, you go to a spot, if you miss the spot, you're pulling the anchor, and you re-anchor, put it all out. Then when you decide to leave to go to another fishing spot, you got to pull the anchor. Then you got to put the anchor rope away so the anchor's not bouncing as you're going to the next spot 5 miles away and chipping your gel coat. So there's all that time has now been taken back and given back to the anglers, so that the anglers get more fishing time.
That's incredible. That's great.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. You know, I'm really impressed at the setup here. Obviously, today we're doing this from the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, the 2024 boat show. We are at Front Runner. And, you know, I don't think I've ever seen such a nice collection of Front Runner all together at once before. You know, so it's pretty cool to see. I've only seen them one at a time.
Yeah, man, it's
You know,
cool
so
to see all the different models.
pretty cool to see them here. Let me officially kick this show off right now. This is the Connected by Water podcast, fueled by our very good friends at Papa's Pilar Rum, who remind you never to be a spectator. I want to mention real quick that the fine folks over at Papa's Pilar Distillery in Key West, Florida, just won the USA Today Award for Best Craft Distillery Tour.
Cool.
And which is pretty cool. So the best craft distillery tour in the nation. So let's cheers to that. And Papa's Pilar has been our sponsor now for 5 years running. I'm very proud to be part of their family. And just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that we are a Waypoint hosted podcast, and you can find us there, or also watch, listen, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and smash those like and subscribe buttons. Before I introduce today's incredible guests, thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I'd like to announce this week's starbrite Solutions Project Sea Safe do-gooders. And this week's do-gooder is Richie Cummings of Merritt Island, Florida, for always being an all-around conservation rock star. Keep up the great work on being a steward of our environment and natural resources. And congrats on being this week's starbrite Project Sea Safe do-gooder. if you want to nominate a do-gooder in your area, just message us on Instagram. They could win a very special Starbrite Solutions prize pack, which I actually have the bucket of fun right here behind me, worth over $200. So, as always, thank you to our sponsors, Papa's PLRM, Starbrite, Olukai, and Seaward Systems for the great support of our show. And thank you to Frontrunner Boats for being such, showing us your hospitality and allowing us to podcast here from the boat show at your fine facility today. Without further ado, today's guests, father and son duo, Captain Rick and Ridge Murphy, whose reputations in the fishing industry are second to none. Rick, you are an absolute giant in our industry, and Ridge, you are following right in the footsteps of your father while carving out your own path at the same time. Thank you guys very much for joining me here. Really, really means a lot. So,
well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, so we were just talking about the front runners, what sets them apart, and and their presence at the show, their presence on your media platforms, and I know you guys feel really great about that relationship.
We really do. And before we signed with Frontrunner, we had a relationship with another boat company, for 28 years, and you just don't replace that.
Right.
And it took us 2.5 years to find that a place that Ridge and I and Kathy felt was, a move in the right direction.
You had to shop around a little bit.
Yeah.
And to think about that, it's they have really stepped up the game here because the customizing that you can get. But more importantly, one of the things that I've really learned at this show is so many other boat companies, they charge you for A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. And their standard features are just a few things. This boat, the Frontrunner line, comes with so many things standard.
Yeah.
And then that way, like if you were this beautiful lounge that you're sitting on,
it's very
if you're going to order that through another boat company, that's an add-on. So you have this base price of the boat, and then you start adding all this stuff on. The cool part about Frontrunner, most all the stuff is already here.
Yeah.
And that's standard products. So that's one of the things that came to us that we really liked. And then we also liked that anything we wanted to do, they were willing to do it.
Yeah.
They were willing to customize anything we needed to do. And that, over the years, through manufacturing, has been lost. Because a lot of boat companies, they got to pump out numbers. And if they don't pump out numbers, and whether it's a skiff company or a bay boat company, if they don't put so many numbers out, they're not paying the mortgage. They're not paying the salaries. And in this particular case, because these guys are such a new company, they're not worried about the quantity.
They take
all
pride
about
in the fact that it's 4 boats a month.
You know?
The fit and finish I'm noticing is just impeccable. I mean, I've been here all day so far, and I've been on every boat, and I'm pretty impressed.
So if somebody's listening or they're watching, one of the things that I'd suggest they do, whether it's at this show, another show, or maybe at a marina, step on the boat and lay down on the floor and look up underneath the gunnel. It's finished all the way to where the gunnel and the cap get met. It's not spray gunned. Yeah. It's not painted. It's finished with gel coat. You look inside that console, every single wire, Dennis, is got a tag on it as to what it belongs to and where it goes.
And the same
every
in the
single
bilge.
one, everything in the bilge. So that's the little bit of difference, and we used to have that many years ago because it wasn't quantity.
Yeah,
it was quality.
That's great. I just, in our previous podcast that I just had, we talked about going from bad to good to great, right? And the different levels, the space in between, right? Which I have this theory that going from bad to good is very easy.
Yes.
Very simple, right? You all you got to do is just do it a lot and love it.
Right.
And you'll become good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going from good to great, the space between that is vast.
Takes time.
Right? It takes time, it takes experience, and it takes heart, and it takes effort. Right? More importantly, effort, I think, like dedication to it.
Yeah.
And when you go from good to great, which you're talking about right here. Right?
Yes.
And I think that's just speaks to the company there. So
it does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's outstanding. Rick, obviously, it's very difficult, I think, to find another person in this industry who's just gone at it as much as you have, really, like over the years. You have just been, and when I introduced you as a giant in this industry, I really meant it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's true. You've just been doing it for so long, and your attention to detail and your matter from good to great is obvious. So, Ridge, you've grown up in that shadow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're seemingly kind of like taking the baton and choosing to follow a similar path, right?
Yes, sir.
How's that been for you?
You know, it's tough, but at the same time, you just got to keep going and keep on moving with it. You got a great teacher, and if I could just half-ass listen, and at the same time, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those deals. It's you're trying to prove and do everything, but at the same time, you got to just sometimes watch and learn.
Yeah, and it must have been pretty cool growing up with a dad like that.
Awesome.
Right?
It
I
wasn't
wouldn't
easy.
trade it for anything.
No?
No, I'm a son of a bitch sometimes. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's
No, really,
it's
Rick?
not, well, you know, it's not easy because my drive has always been not to ever celebrate the win. Let's
Right.
go to the next thing.
Okay.
And I remember one time I was in Isla Morada, and George Hummel, he was the guy that
Sure.
started Worldwide with Billy Pate, and then eventually Johnny Morse came and bought them, and I had just won a tournament. And I was at a gas station, and George pulled up, and I was coming home after the awards banquet. And he says, you know, Rick, can I tell you something? I go, sure. What do you got, George? And he goes, you know why they don't like you around here too much? And I go, no. He says, you come down here and you win the tournament, and you don't even stay long enough to buy him a drink. And he goes, maybe you ought to just buy him a drink one time.
Yeah.
And he was right. He was right because, you know, for us, it was, you know, because I won one time, and I hate to start a sentence with I, because everything I ever accomplished was with a team.
Right.
You know, whether it was winning my 150th title with Ridge or, you know.
Yeah.
Shit.
Hey, right here. Give that to me.
There
That's
was,
awesome.
There were so
You know,
many
Right.
times.
That tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah.
You're doing that right now.
So, but, you know, one time I won the biggest redfish tournament in Mayport, Florida. 153 boats in a one redfish tournament.
Yeah.
So we win that tournament. The next weekend, we all have to be in Louisiana. So everybody left except for the top 5. We had to stay and fish on Sunday. So we stayed and fished, and we ended up winning. We get to Louisiana, okay? We've pre-fished Monday through Thursday. They have the tournament Friday and Saturday. At the end of the first day, it was only top 50. It was a 50 Elite 50 redfish sanction event that was on ESPN, the Redfish Cup.
Yep.
We're in 48th place out of 50. And the 2 guys that we were
Not going
ahead
well.
of,
Hero
they
to
broke
zero
down.
in a
They broke
week.
down.
Oh, no.
And so what I'm saying is,
So
and
you're
we
really in last
had-
place is what you're saying.
Yeah, and we had great fish. We had really good fish. We had 15 pounds the first day. We didn't
Yeah.
know that everybody's catching 18 pounds
Yeah.
for 2 fish. So that's how fishing is. It can humble you just like that, and that's why, in our house, my wife, Kathy, she's on me all the time about, Bub, you got to stop and celebrate
You
the
celebrate the win every once in a
win.
while.
Well, I do, but, it's hard. It's gotten a little easier as I gotten harder, as
Yeah.
I got older, I should say.
I can absolutely relate to that, though. I mean, I'm always pulling parallels between fishing and art because, A, I think fishing is an art, number one, but I'm always seeing, like, common similarities. And it's the same thing. Whenever you can kind of just finish a great painting or work on a great project, you just on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
people are like, oh, well, don't you love it? Don't you, I'm like, well, when you create it, when you actually blood, sweat, and tears did it, it's you do it for a living, you professional mode, and you just want to move on to the next one.
Yeah, the expectation versus
that's it.
reality.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand where you're coming from on it, but my wife tells me that the same thing all the time. She's like, just enjoy that
Right.
for a minute. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. And for Ridge, it wasn't always easy. I mean, it really wasn't. But I'll tell you, Ridge was born with a work ethic like I've never seen before. I told him when he was 12 years old, I go, Bub, here's what I'm going to do. Any bit of money that you save, when it comes time to you turn 15, we'll get you a truck. I'll match whatever you save.
Uh-huh.
So he had a buddy, his Manny,
Yeah.
We had a
right.
Manny, but he was a man, so we called him a Manny. Well, so he said on the weekends, well, let's go catch pinfish. He sells pinfish to the bait and tackle stores.
Right.
Okay, I'm not paying any attention. I know he's gone all the time. He's got somebody driving him, and he's selling pinfish to all the little tackle stores in South Dade, out of a jumbo. Well, it came time to get his truck, and I said, okay, Bubba, we're going to go get you a truck. How much have you saved? $13,500. And think about how many pinfish that is when he was only selling for 50 cents a piece.
Oh, nice.
That's 27,000 pinfish sent from 12 to 15 years old.
Right.
So he works his little fanny off, I'll say that, but, I can't say enough about how hard it was probably growing up in my shadow, because it was just, this is the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
And there's no substitute. But that was me. That wasn't him. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, our good friend, our mutual friend, Jeff Page.
Yeah.
Right? And he's one of the best guides there is on the west coast of Florida.
100%.
I've had the honor to be able to fish with him and our other good friend, Wade, before in the past. And, it's just kind of funny because we this moment we had, all these redfish are like coming, or these big bull reds are coming our way and everything like that. We're walking the dog, and I'm not doing it up to Jeff's standards. and partly because I'm just like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You know what I mean? And I might have been a little bit, shaky on it because I was just excited. And he's like, "Man, I thought you were a gunslinger, Dennis." just like that.
Just like Page.
And I'm like, what? And he goes, "No, I'm serious. I thought you were a gunslinger. How come you don't have a redfish in the boat yet?"
Oh, no.
And we're only 20 seconds into it. I'm like, man, this guy's gonna get on me right after the bat.
Oh yeah, that sounds just like Captain.
Well, I got some reds in the boat, so it turned out okay. But yeah, he was on me about it. But he told me a lot of stories during that trip about you coming up as a young guy, and all the hard work and the dedication and the just immersing yourself down there in the Everglades that you did as a young man, right? And I was, real curious. You talk about the parallels and the work ethic, and I'm glad to hear that come out of your mouth, that you got that work ethic, because coming from Jeff, he tells me stories about how you worked real hard to get where you are.
Well, I had a stepfather that was, man, he created the work ethic that I have. You know, he was a tough SOB. I mean, tough.
Yeah.
Wasn't, one of those guys that he would tell you he loved you too much or any of that stuff. But, we had, when I moved, 12 years old, moved to the Redlands, they bought 5 acres of land, and that's where we lived. And it was all beautiful grass and beautiful oak trees and all this stuff. And for my 15th birthday, I got a tractor to cut the grass. But for 3 years, I cut 5 acres with a push mower.
Okay.
So, we believed the harder you work, the more the reward. And we still believe that today. Mm-hmm. But when it came to the Everglades, man, think about the mentors I had. Al Pfluger Jr.,
Yep.
A little bit of time with Flip, Stu App, and then Ralph Delph. Those were guys that were bringing me along, and one of the greatest compliments I ever had was Stu said, he said, "I gave you this stuff, and then you expanded on it." Wow. To come from a legend like that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the best compliment I ever heard, because I wasn't necessarily the smartest guy, but Steve Huff was my hero. Mm-hmm. And the reason why Huff was my hero is I met him in the first month of guiding. I was pushing Pfluger around up in Homosassa, and Huff was sick. He had some stomach virus, and he'd sleep in the tub. But in the morning we get up, he's already gone. And then he'd pull Sandy Moret around all day long. We come back, he'd get back in the tub because he had this stomach virus, and it was easier just to roll over and puke in the toilet and stay and sleep in the tub. So my first 3 or 4 years of guiding, when I would think about going in, I'd say to myself, I bet that sumbitch Steve Huff, I bet he's still pulling. Mm-hmm. And I'd stay out another hour and a half or 2 hours when I was already ready to go. And I can't tell you how many fish we caught because of that.
In that golden hour.
That golden hour. And, you know, that's one of the things that I've tried to distill in Ridge is don't worry about what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, you stay in your boat.
Stay in your boat.
I like that.
And he gets so aggravated at me because I haven't been fishing maybe for a month, or I'd be in Guatemala, or I'd be in the Bahamas, or I'd be someplace. I'd come home. And he would say, he's
catching him on the couch.
Well, why don't you tell him how you came up with that?
It'd drive me crazy. So he went and got into an accident. And during the accident, it's like, okay, I get a little overflow from him and get overflow from everybody else. Start doing a couple more charters than I was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting there and, hey, this is the tide. This is the conditions. What do you think about this? Yeah, that's a good idea, but you might want to go do this. Or maybe take a look at this. He wouldn't say, hey, you need to go do this.
Right.
But, you know, go do your thing and then go maybe figure something else out. And go check a peek. And sure enough, probably 8 out of 10 times, sitting on the couch for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month. There it is.
And he would come home.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
And he would say, Dad,
How'd you know?
You
ain't
haven't
been
been
out there
fishing
in
in
a month or
a
2
month.
months,
Yeah.
and you knew exactly what it was to the T.
well, that's 45 years of
Right.
pulling a boat around, you know. Or,
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that a lot of these younger guys, new generation of guys, not taken away from, they're great fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
But the Pfluger and I and Stu and all those guys before me and during my time, we didn't have GPS where you could push a button and go straight to it.
Right.
And so a lot of guys have learned how to navigate through the backcountry and all that stuff, not with a push pole in their hand like Huff or like myself or like my brother. It's one of those situations where we learned by just doing it.
Sticking the pole
And a
in the
lot of
ground.
these younger guys, they get to look at all this great satellite photos and all these great equipment. Think about forwards facing sonar and how it's changed bass fishing.
I mean, I have my opinion on it, but
Of course we do. Just no different than sonars in these big center consoles or even the big sport fish boats.
Yeah.
How they're now catching all these marlin, but they're not catching the marlin. The electronics catching the marlin, but it doesn't take away. They're still fishing and they're still catching.
Still fishing.
So, but what I try to teach with Ridge when we do talk, most of the time when we're talking, we're on the way to some place to film a Sportsman's Adventure episode or something. And I'll say to him, well, what's the tide? He'll tell me. So what's the weather going to be? What's the wind going to be doing? And he'll say this, this, and this. And okay, this is where you need to go.
Yeah.
And he'll go do that, and it's epic, But that's because I learned those things from Stu or from Pfluger. I'll give you a quick Pfluger story. One time we pull up at a canal in Flamingo. And I get my rod out before he is. We both got a bucktail jig on with a red feather, Millie's bucktail. And he's messing around. And I make a cast and catch a snook. Make another cast, catch a snook. I make 5 casts and I catch 4 snook. And in my mind, I didn't say it aloud. I just said in my mind, oh, I'm going to kick his butt today. At the end of the day, we caught 28 snooks. Guess how many out of the 28 I caught?
Half?
5.
8.
Dang.
He stopped at 20 because he said, when I get to 20, we can go home, buddy.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, Albert, what am I doing wrong? Because, in a short period of time, he's catching one and I'm not getting a bite. He says, you're not feeling the bite on the drop. And I think to myself, no way.
Yeah.
And I go, he says, feel your leader. You just had a bite a minute ago and you didn't set the hook.
Okay.
I bring it in, feel the leader, chafe from the snook.
Yeah. Too slack in the beginning?
I would drop so fast on the bump that I wasn't feeling the fish hit it because I had slack in my line.
Yeah.
And taking that to Key West and jigging for cobias would separate the difference of catching one and not catching one. And then taking that and doing that in the redfish tours when you were vertical jigging a jetty in Texas was the difference of winning and not winning.
Yeah, that fine line.
And, but it's only because you had a mentor of greatness show you a subtle little thing that you put into your head and it stayed there forever.
Ridge, you hear all this, right? And,
Oh, yeah.
And you live this, right?
Every day.
And on one hand, it's like it's got to be a godsend that you have such a great teacher. but on the other hand, it's got to be intimidating, right? So you know his history. You know all the stories,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And does that inspire you more, or does it intimidate you more?
No. I want to be better,
All right.
honestly.
I like that. Good answer.
And that's just one of those things.
Is that what drives you?
I think that's how I kind of got into the offshore world, to be honest.
Okay.
It's okay. So I got the inshore mentor, the greatest mentor you could possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
How do I expand on that? How do we build on that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are great at one thing, but they're not good at everything.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I could possibly be good at everything, does that make me great?
Right.
Maybe one day, not today, but maybe one day.
He's a much better offshore fisherman when it comes to blue marlin or sailfish. He knows so much more than I do when it comes to setting up dredges and teasers, and it blows my mind.
Yeah.
And the cool part is that we're now, a lot of times we are working together on those situations because
You play the strengths,
I understand
you know?
all the different products that are available to us
Mm-hmm.
to build dredges, or to build teasers or to build live bait rigs. And Ridge is in the process of fine tuning how to do that because he's out fishing on a private boat, the Triple Threat, or he's fishing, he used to fish with John here in the Singularis. And so he's been to New Jersey, and he's been to the Bahamas, and he's been this place and that place. Those are places I never fished,
Yeah.
But the cool part is, as all these new products come down, I said, well, why don't we try this? We can get all of these we want for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's been so much fun, Dennis.
Yeah, that New Jersey fishery is different too.
That was cool.
Yeah,
you
I
look
remember-
down, you're in that green water, and here he comes.
Yeah, I mean, my first experience on that was with the Jimmy Johnson tournament. Started going up to the Atlantic City tournament, so I started going up with them. And it's everything, the culture is different, the scene is different, the fishing is different. I mean, just have to run 60 to 100 miles out to the canyons.
I'd like to spend some more time up there. We didn't get to do a whole lot of it, but it was pretty cool when we did.
Yeah, do you like that kind of fishing better than?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I wouldn't say better or worse. I've always said if I could catch two, the offshore, inshore, it'd be a blue marlin and a tarpon.
Yeah.
And now more so tarpon on fly.
Yep.
I'm getting a little more into that. I started doing all the tournaments in the Keys, doing that. And it's something.
And you recently had some success down in those Keys tournaments.
Yeah, we won the ladies tournament 2 years ago. We got second last year.
Yep.
With Elizabeth Johnson. She's a really good client of mine. She's an absolute gunslinger.
Okay.
And then I got his 150th title with fishing the Poor Boys in July last year. So we won that one too.
Yep.
And it was really cool to have him on the front of the boat for that.
That's great. So listen, you kind of grew up with a camera in your face, right?
Yeah.
Right. So which was kind of an interesting way to grow up, I'm sure. But so you guys are always filming, or you're always tournament. What about the fun fishing? Are you guys still doing that, or are you just so consumed with work on the water?
Fun fishing's where all the learning, all the ideas, all the little things that, in the big grand scheme of things, it's a bunch of little things that amount to one big thing, right? When it comes to fishing, all the little tiny details that make the difference.
Yeah.
And so that's where the fun fishing comes in place, where it's like, okay, I can't try this on a charter, but I can try it with you. Or with
you guys are fishing together, fun fishing now still?
Yeah. And we'll take my younger son, Colin. He works for Florida Coast Equipment selling Kubotas.
Mm-hmm.
So, Monday through Friday, he's that corporate guy, sales guy, and he's in an office. And so, man, he likes to catch snappers and groupers, and he likes to cook what we catch. He's a big foodie, like his mama.
That's fun.
Cool.
And so, man, you'll see in 2025 here, the three of us did a mahi show out of our front runner. We picked up the front runner on Friday, and Saturday we were in Key West filming a mahi show.
Okay.
And, man, Colin was just hilarious. And we're so dead-ass tired from driving back and forth and picking up boat and rigging boat over the night. But, oh, my gosh, and Ridge drove the boat.
Yeah.
And I just stood off to the side and tried not to get in Colin's way while Ridge is yelling at Colin, and Colin's trying to do what he's being told. And, so, but you'll see.
It's a bunch of
when
madness,
you see
but
it
all
on
looks
TV,
good.
you're like, wow. Those three goofballs, man, they are having so much fun.
Yeah.
So
besides the upcoming season, right?
Yes, sir.
What's been like, if you had to look back, like give me some highlights, some great moments on your filming career, on your show career. Like there has to be like these benchmark moments for you that have just stood out to you. Like, oh man, I remember that one time when we were down at this one place. I mean, you got any stories like that are meaningful to you?
Filming
He's laughing.
or not filming?
Some of
Give
our
me
best,
both.
some of our best shows, we didn't talk to each other for 3 weeks afterwards.
Really? Why?
Just banging heads, you know.
Yeah.
You got the greatest teacher trying to teach you something, and you were trying to prove yourself guiding at the same time, and it's clashing. But then at the end of the day, some of the coolest things happen. We're
that
fishing.
is so true.
We're fishing together, and you riding around looking for a certain school of fish, and here they come. One of our best shows we did together was, the redfish. We did a bunch of big redfish out in the Gulf. And all you had to do was find them.
Right.
If you could find them, you were going to catch a bunch of them. We spent 30, 40 minutes just trying to get one slow-mo shot of this fish, and it was the biggest disaster you could have ever
Really?
thought of.
What happened?
Because we're butting heads, It's
Okay.
like, okay, you're going to throw in here, you're going to do nice and slow, this and that.
Is
and
he
of
yelling
course,
at you like Jeff
Mama-
was yelling at me?
Of course, Mama Nature's in there too, so then you got the drift and everything. So, but it always works out, and it always translates to camera really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
The big 100, he caught 40-pound tarpon in 3 feet of water, whole back out of the water. This was last season.
This was the last season. Here's a great example.
And we're riding around.
So I'm standing on the boat, and we had a girl from Fish Bites. And she's standing on the boat. This fish is swimming his whole back's out of the water, and he's in 3 feet of water. So I throw...
Just belly crawling in the mud, just doing the stupid shit.
I
Awesome.
throw this Savage Twitch Reaper in front of him, which is basically a floating lure. It lands in 10 feet in front of him.
Yeah.
And,
wait.
And I hear Ridge in the background. He's telling me, "Oh no, wait! You're gonna hit him in the back. He's gonna." And I'm just waiting, and I'm waiting. He's no. He don't
Wait for
twitch it. Don't
wait for him to turn.
you're
Wait for him to turn.
And I go like this, and the fish goes all face out of the water and hooks him. And you hear Ridge say in the background, "Oh, okay, you got him." And now this 140-pounder comes up out of the water, and he's
Coming
jumping all over the
completely
place. And he's telling me I had a bad angle on the cast. I was like,
and he's just sitting up there. Watch this.
I'm thinking, yeah.
I've done this
it's
before.
It's going to be one twitch, and it's going to be, But I'll tell you a story that this is really all about Ridge. Is we were my 149th title, the win that I had. I was with him in Guatemala, and we had one of the guys from the Texas Insider Fisher Report. So it was 3 of us fishing in a sailfish tournament out of Casa
That
Vieja
no
Lodge.
Sancocho tournament.
And the first day we were tied for first with against a woman's team that his mama's on. So we're fishing against mama.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, in the second day we're dropped from first place to 4th place, and mama's in first place. So I say to the captain, because I've been going to Guatemala since 1994, I go, "When was the last time you were to the West?" He goes, 7 months. I go, "Well, I'm never going to tell you what to do, Terry, but I don't know about what you saw yesterday, but we got our butts handed to us. Everybody around us was catching when we weren't." And he goes, "I know, I can't take that today." He goes, "I'd rather go someplace else and not have to share whatever fish are around." I said, "Well, let's go. Let's just make the run. It's a 50-mile run, and it may be a home run. It may not be." Well, at the end of the day, we pull up to the place. We lose a half an hour or 45 minutes of fishing just because of how far it was.
Right.
But Ridge, we get there, and I'm getting a fly rod out because fly rod's double points than a fish on the bait. So we needed to catch up. We needed to catch a couple fish on fly to help offset the 8 fish we're behind.
Right.
Well, anyway, I look, and Ridge is dropping the first ballyhoo over as towards the teaser, and 3 fish come up. When it was all said and done, we catch 50 sailfish in one day, the 3 of us, and
4
on fly.
46 on bait.
Wow.
I caught 8 on the bow going backwards.
Which set a new record for that tournament,
Wow.
But what was cool for me is I got to do that with him. So my 149th win and my 150th win, he was a huge part of this. And like I said a minute ago, everything that I've ever done is because of a team of people to help me accomplish it, and him being part of the team.
So this kind of like was what I wanted to ask you. I asked you earlier, what's it like growing up and, intimidated or not and all that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But for you, Rick, I mean, sitting next to you's got to be a dream come true.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I speak, and I say that as a father myself. You know what I mean? I mean, for you, that's got to be the most special thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking, at your clone there.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up behind you.
So
that's
much,
all a father could ever ask for.
Absolutely. And part of, I think, the fussing at times is because when you use the word clone, that's as many me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's that internal fighting of perfection versus good enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but with Ridge, oh my goodness, you could have never asked for somebody to potentially pass the baton to, because I know that he's going to work as hard, if not harder, than I did at the same age.
Yeah.
Because I have to constantly tell myself, well, what was I doing at 27, now going to be 28 in December? He's so much further along than I was, Dennis. I mean, at 28, I was poling in Everglades National Park. Ridge at 28 is a tremendous fisherman throughout all of the Keys, Everglades National Park, the Bahamas, off of Miami, inshore, offshore, bonefish, tarpon, fly fishing, bait fishing, lure fishing, the backcountry. But I was 40 years old before I got to the level of experience that Ridge is already at 28.
I don't know about all that.
Nah.
You ever, through all the yelling and the pushing, and you ever just look at him when he's not looking and just be like,
oh, yeah.
That's my boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
There's a lot of that when he's not around.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that from him when I'm not around. You know what I mean?
Neither one of us are going to know it, but it's there.
That's great, man. I mean, for me, it's special. That's when we talked about the show, and I'm like, can we get Rich on, And by the way, I wouldn't be proper without me saying that. Mike Myatt loves you to pieces. Like, he really does. Like, when I told him, I'm like,
he was a big part of me becoming a little more involved in this industry.
That's great. When I told him I was bringing both of you guys on, he was real excited about that.
Myatt and Chris Peterson were the first two people, and Joe Niebuhr was a big part of me wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And it was like they had open arms and open doors, and it was you could call me whenever you want. I had no business at 12 years old or 11 years old calling those guys and bothering them on a Friday night, but I did.
Yeah.
And it was cool. And for those guys, I appreciate the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's just good stuff. I mean, Mike's I call him Uncle Mike, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He's just like that, man.
He's everybody's uncle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're right.
It's pretty cool, man. Like, I like the industry and I like the family that it is, and I love the network. You talked about all the guys that helped you along the way, and I'm sure there's other guys beyond your dad that have giving you great advice. I mean, what are some of your big your big mentors, other than your dad?
I spent a lot of time with John Cooper, Froggy, all over the Caribbean, all over the Bahamas. He put up with me for way longer than he needed to. I don't know why, and I appreciate that more than anything. Joe Niebuhr was a big part of that too. I got on Contender 1 when I was 11 years old, and from 11 to 16, it was
he dominated all the junior
every
categories.
fish that comes up, you're catching.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to do that. They didn't need to do that, but it was cool. And it was really, really something that I was glad to be a part of.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure our Captain John Van Dellen, too.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know John when we first started working together. It was actually Ben Sharp called me, and he's like, hey, you want to go fishing in Jersey? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's go. He's like, I got a client. He's going to pay for your plane ticket to come out and this and that. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, I didn't even ask. I go, well, what kind of boat is it? At the very end of the conversation, I'm already committed. He goes, well, what kind of boat is it? He said, 90 Bayless. I'm like, oh, yes, we're going right now.
Yep.
And
it was so cool, man. I didn't know. I've never fished in center consoles my whole life, and then all of a sudden you're in this giant boat, you know.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to fish with John multiple times.
It was awesome.
on both of the Baylesses.
And I got to fish under Jerry Pole for a little bit on the Seraphim with Richard Peoples in the cockpit. So that was awesome.
All right.
And then for afterwards, I got to fish with Richard in the Seraphim on the actual tower. So that was really cool.
Senior or junior?
Junior.
Yeah.
Richard Peoples.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, man.
Then you got the right end of the stick there.
Brick's always been good to me too, though.
Yeah, you know, Brick's good. I love Brick.
And then the freelance game
family.
in Miami's been always good too. And just have a couple guys you bounce around with. I fish with Mike Lawson a lot too.
Nice.
Really enjoy spending time with him. So
I think
and
that's
then
where
now
you
with
really
Matt
learn.
Ravenstein.
Okay.
So.
I think that's where you really learn. When you start getting out on the periphery with the other captains, you know what I mean? And that's when you can spread it around and you kind of pick up a little knowledge from this one, a little knowledge from
bit
that
from
one.
everybody.
I think that's really where you really start learning the
that
details.
And being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Right.
For me, if I'm uncomfortable, like I really enjoy working for Matt because he's such a perfectionist and the boat has to be so perfect that it keeps me on my toes.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so I'm not a big organized guy. You go to my garage, it's a complete disaster.
Yep.
But everything has a home and everything has a place. So when it's in the actual workplace, it's that much better and that much more perfected.
Yeah,
and it shows on this, with the front runner deal.
That discomfort is one of those factors from
Keeps
going
you
from
on
good
top.
to great. Yeah.
I say you refer to that as same ocean, different approach.
I like that.
And by having all those different captains, they're fishing the same water, but they're doing it differently. And if you can take away, like Ridge, if he can take away one little thing from each one of those, think how much better he is in 20 years of all of that.
Yeah.
That's a giant advantage.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the little things that amount to one big thing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because years ago, I can't even remember what boat or what captain it was. We were fishing in a sailfish tournament, one of the sailfish tournaments here locally, and we're putting the kites up right in the morning, and he goes, "Well, whatever, man. We're all just doing the same thing anyway." and I kind of, I sat back and I'm like, well, we're not all just doing this. Yeah, we're all putting up kites. Yeah, we're all using the same type of bait. You know what I mean? But there's all those little details that separate. Like, why is, Contender 1 or Native Son or John Louis? What makes those guys the consistent guys that are always on the leaderboard? You know what I mean?
100%.
We're not doing the same thing. I'm sorry. It's not possible.
Not a chance.
They're not doing the same thing, I can assure you.
Exactly.
That remix team for the last, 6 or 7 years, you scratch your head. You fish right beside them and you go, what?
Yeah.
What happened? Why?
Yeah. And we'll never know. Maybe
some
of us, you know what I mean?
Maybe we need to get them on the podcast.
Yeah, right. But
they won't tell you.
It's interesting. No, they won't.
And they're so tight, they don't fire anybody, so you can't hire this guy from that guy and get the secrets because they never get rid of anybody.
Yeah. The funny thing is
what makes that team so strong.
We have Art Saps on the show like all the time. Right?
Yeah.
Because he's like our local. We have the tournament talk edition of the show, so he's probably on the show. Him and Skip come on like once every 3-4 months or something like that. We just catch up and everything. We talked about that, and I said to him one time, I said, Art, I am amazed that you're willing to just tell people on this show what you're willing to tell people. And he's like, he goes, you ever see that Rocky at the end of like Rocky 2, and it was Rocky and Apollo Creed? He goes, Rocky said some statement, like, oh, be careful, I might come out with the left hook. And Apollo goes, I may have taught you everything that you know, but I didn't tell you everything that I know.
That's right.
And he goes, and that's pretty much what it is. He goes, to the guys that know, to the guys that are really good, I'm not telling them anything new. You know what I mean?
That's
but
correct.
maybe to the guy that's, the weekend warrior, that they're hearing all this stuff and there's great knowledge for them.
Right.
But to the guy, guys like you, John Louis, whatever, like, it's nothing new to them.
Right.
They already know that.
And Art's a great angler.
Art's
a great
incredible.
captain.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
He's always there.
Yeah.
Super nice all the time.
Good, solid guy. 100%. 100%. There's there's something I want to kind of bring up, like on the show here to you guys too. And we're talking about, you got your son here and we're building a future and all that kind of stuff. And conservation plays a big role in that, right? And obviously you want the resource to be sustainable for your future generations and all that. And you guys participate in a lot of different events and a lot of different organizations that help promote that, particularly the CCA.
Right.
I know you're one of their leading ambassadors.
Yeah.
We work with the CCA a lot, doing a lot of artwork for their. Explain to me in your words the importance of supporting organizations like that.
And that's a really cool question because, in today's world, there's so many. There's CCA, and then you have the Bonefish Tarpon Trust, and you got captains, and then
even the IGFA is a very good organization, conservation group.
Yeah. But
there's countless ones. I mean, there's so many more.
But the key is that in our space, or what we believe in, is that the reason we do CCA is because we truly believe both on a national and on a state level. They're the conservation organization that I refer to them as like the NRA of fishing.
Correct.
So they're there
to
protect our fishing rights on both federal and state levels. But what I also really respect about them is they try to keep the organizations that we aren't in touch with, like NOAA or like the Gulf Council. I wouldn't know who to call over there. You know what I mean? But like I just found out 2 months ago on the Florida Insider Fisher Report, I had Congressman Rob Whitman from Virginia come down, and he's the one pushing the Shark Act.
Okay.
And the Shark Act is basically, we want to get something put in front of Congress and get Marco Rubio and Rick Scott to sign off on it, and then Texas, Ted Cruz and their other senator over there. And it's important because we believe the sharks are out of control. But more importantly, what I found out, and this is, I'm trying not to be so long-winded, is they have not done a shark assessment in 8 years.
No.
Look at how much shark fishing has changed just in 3. And I have to be careful because my dear friend Guy Harvey, through the Ocean Foundation, I mean, he's the one who really pushed shark conservation globally.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Guy has, I'll let him speak for himself, but he has recognized the fact that we're out of balance in places with certain species. He would never say that we should take lemon sharks globally, because globally lemon sharks are in big trouble. But it doesn't mean that lemon sharks in Everglades National Park are not out of control.
We talk about
this. And that's
me
talking, not him.
We talk about this at length on this show, 100%. You're looking at it the same way I look at it all the time. We've been talking about shark depredation on this show for years, right? Yeah. And it is an ongoing topic. We recently had we did an episode with Robert Spotswood Jr., who is a member of the South
Atlantic. I know him very, very well.
Right? And we talked about it. And they've changed some recent laws that were not in the favor of what we're trying to achieve here. He basically says the only way we need to do this is to go back to Congress and have them change it.
And that's what the Shark Act is.
Right. And that's why I'm bringing that up, because since you brought that up, and I just wanted to agree with you on that I think that is the only way that we're going to see any sort of positive change on the topic.
That's correct.
Because we need more citizen science. We need more data from anglers. He recently talked about that program that they came out with you could take your limit. You can apply for that program to where you could just take your limit of a certain amount of fish every day. You have to report there's a certain amount of fish. And at first people were putting an eyebrow up at it, but if people go back and listen to that episode, he really lays it out. It is a pretty good program because we don't have data. Every time we complain about something to NOAA or Fisheries Council or FWC, they say, well, we need the data. And that's a data collecting program. And that's one first step to be able to help them do that.
Where are they getting it
that's
from?
Correct.
Too,
right.
And so back to CCA, they have the ability to talk to those people that you and I don't have the ability to talk to. So it's important. And what I would say to anybody listening is just pick an organization that best fits what you believe in and support it. Don't be the guy that sits on the sideline and bitches about all the things that are bad, but then don't do anything about it. If you don't get involved or you don't engage, you have no right to say anything.
Right.
Even if your engagement is negative, to my opinion, I don't care, because the truth is you're engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's better than somebody who just sits on the sideline and fusses.
Every day, all day long,
all
better.
day.
Yep.
Sitting on Facebook screaming at
Yep.
somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, those guys are really a huge part of what we believe in, because they're protecting my rights. They're also creating habitat on all different levels, whether it's grass, oyster reefs, artificial reefs. They're also making sure that we stay in check, and when you were talking a second ago about people with Spotswood's opinion, raising their eyebrow. Listen, a poacher's going to poach. He ain't going to report anything, and he's going to continue to keep poaching.
Right.
But the people that do stick by the law, and the people that do decide to turn in their reports, I don't think that's a problem. And I explain it just like if I decide you and I are fishing the same school of fish, and you decide you want to keep your fish, and I decide to let mine go, as long as we're doing things the same way, catching them one at a time and not in a gill net,
Right.
then it's fair trade. If you want to eat yours and I want to let mine go, then that's us. That's our own deal. And I think it's really that simple.
Yep.
It's just human nature that makes it all complicated.
I agree with you. Sure does. Usually does. Usually does.
So.
All right, I'm going to ask you both the question that I ask all my great ones that I have on the show. We all have one. And I'd like you both to answer this individually. What's your one that got away?
Ooh. I don't know.
You don't have one?
I don't know if I do, to
Okay.
be honest. I'm just so, when I go out on the water, it's just about whatever that's happening on that day with the person on the front of the boat.
All right.
And whatever
So you don't have
happens.
a fish that haunts you that still
Oh, no,
that
now
still
I do.
lives.
Actually, I take that back. We were way the hell back up in the middle of Hell's Bay. And I was pulling along this edge, and I looked up, and I saw this snook. And he was the size of a log. And this guy, it was a kind of a slow day. There was a few fish here and there. But it wasn't one of those days where it was on fire, And so we're back there. And I'm pulling around. I look up, and this guy's been throwing a plug all day long. And I'm like, okay, if you want to throw, you can keep throwing. If you want to just sight fish, we can sight fish. He's been throwing so much, his arm's about to fall off. And I look up, and I go, man, that log looks a lot like a snook. And he says, well, should I throw over there? And I said, sure. Threw over there to him. And fish spooks off and never even got him. And so that night, I'm having, fish dreams on this fish. And I never have fish dreams ever. And so I would say probably about 4 or 5 days after that, I got this couple from Colorado. And they can't fish at all.
Okay.
But they're in there, and we're catching a couple fish here and there. Same thing, plugging around. And I'm coming around this corner, and I go, all right, guys. And I stop the boat completely. Because you're only fishing in lanes that are as big as this boat, if not narrower. And so I stopped the boat, and I go, hey, there was a really big snook here the other day, and he might be here. So we're going to pull up here nice and quiet. I'm going to stop the boat, and you're going to throw. It's going to be on your left-hand side. So, okay, whatever. So he goes in there, and sure as shit, I look up, and there he is. And he's sitting there with his pecs out, and I'm like, oh, my God, here we go. He throws in there, and she gets tight.
No.
And I'm like, oh yeah, it's great.
Right.
And the fish is not moving. And a largemouth bass came up from underneath that snook and ate it again. So
No.
I still haven't caught that damn fish. That's the one that got away from me. That's the
You
only
passed
one
that
that I
spot?
can
Have
think
you
of.
passed that spot since?
I've caught some big fish back there too, and
Yeah.
it might have been the same one or not, but yeah, it's just
man.
that one fish that was haunting me, and sure as hell, more times than not, you're gonna go around the corner. And you're
Right.
telling the client something, and it's either going to be there and it's not. And sure as hell it was there. It was one of those deals that they saw the fish. It was all wrapped up in it. Their knees are shaking, and they
Yeah.
get tight. And I'm like, why is this fish not moving? Like, why are we not tight? And we ended up getting tight on a half-pound bass.
Oh.
It's like, great.
What is the one fish that haunts the great
Can I have
Captain Rick
two?
Murphy? You can have two.
Okay, so one in 1992 was filming for Johnny Morris' Quest for Giant Tarpon with Stu App.
Right.
And we catch a real big fish, and we bring the fish in, and I get the fish beside the boat, and I run a tape measure along the fish. And at the time, he was fishing 12-pound tippet and the world record was 168.
Okay.
So we get the fish beside the boat and we run the tape measure and measure the fish, and the fish tapes out around the same weight. And he didn't get away because we had him in our hand, but we should have brought that fish in and weighed that fish, because knowing what I know now, and from all the fish since then I have measured, killed, weighed for world records or met records or whatever it was, fish was way over that record.
Probably would have been the one.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been a 20-pound record at 201, or he wouldn't. At then the record was 188. He wasn't 201. The other second fish is his mom caught her first blue marlin, and we were, where was the name of that? Samana,
Samana,
which is 100 miles or 86 miles southeast
of Salvador,
San Sal in the Bahamas.
Okay.
Her first blue marlin. We all said, we get the fish beside the boat, grab the fish, take the hook out of the fish, revive the fish. We all say the fish was over 500 plus. We should have killed that fish, because I think now that we've had more fish in our hand, seen more fish, probably fish was well into the 6s. I don't think it was 7, but we never know.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
That one would have been cool, because we had that fish up.
First fish.
Yeah.
Her first blue marlin.
Wow.
She fought the fish on stand-up tackle
for 2 hours.
For 2 hours
Straight
and
up and down,
45
never
minutes.
jumped.
Yeah.
Never jumped. We got him in our hands. He shook on the leader, and then sounded for another hour, and he fought it for an hour.
Little bitty
came
thing.
up brown.
I think
We
the
should have
fact
killed that fish.
I think the fact that there was a fish that was supposed to have bested Captain Rick Murphy. You still caught them though.
Yeah.
That's the competitor in you. You don't want to admit any sort of losing a fish.
No, we caught those fish.
I'm just messing with. I'm just messing with.
It would have been cool to put that one on the scale.
No. I'm with you. I'm with you, Rick.
I'm with you, Rick. Because there's some, like I had one with Pat Ford one time in Whitewater Bay.
Yeah.
And we both thought the same thing. Was tarpon fishing in March, and it was nice and beautiful, warm. I looked at this. I said, Pat, that's the biggest tarpon I've ever seen in my life. Throw to it.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's not a tarpon. It's a tree. It's a submerged tree trunk. And I go, no, Pat, it's a tarpon. Please throw to it. And I'm holding the boat. And he goes, okay. He throws over there, and the fly lands beside the fish. And because it didn't turn the leader over quite right, the fly kind of bit the fish.
Yeah.
And the fish turned sideways and swam off. Our knew the gig was up. And when the fish turned sideways, I thought it was a 36 front runner. It's giant. That's an exaggeration. I am a fisherman, but I'm telling you, it was the biggest poon I've ever seen in Homosassa or whatever. Just a giant fish laying in the mud in March, warming itself. And, your customer going to argue with you about, it's a log. Listen, man, I don't know, but you're paying me a lot of money. Why don't you just throw?
Caster free. Caster free, but just make a cast.
And if you know,
please.
Why do you need me back here polling? It's one of those things.
Yeah,
So,
do you want me to cast? Yes.
Only if you want to catch it.
Yeah, only if you're ready.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Listen, I think there's an open bar downstairs that's calling our name. So
is there some Pilar
there's
there?
Gotta be Pilar
there's
there.
some Pilar down there at that bar. It's time.
Do we have Blondie down there?
I think we got Blondie. I think we got. I have a legacy here too. That's
wow.
We can kind of open up maybe for those. I save only for the most special of guests. So.
Well, I can't wait to meet that person.
Who's especially here.
Let me know when he gets here.
Yes. Who is he? Shall I look?
That's great. Listen, man.
Dennis, thank you.
This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad we were able to make it happen here at this special setting. And I love you guys, man. I appreciate it, man.
We don't need to wait again to do this, do we? Do we have to get a permission from the principal or something?
No. Well, you want to do another episode?
Anytime.
Come on, man.
Anytime.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it in the studio setting, and then we'll really bust out some rum. I don't want to spill any rum on the nice,
Well,
Not
I
on
know
the
beautiful
upholstery.
47-foot front runner
We have-
boats. So
we have a good cleanup crew here.
yeah,
So
Loaded down with
I do have a
Starbrite.
bucket of Starbrite products right here behind me. So
there we go.
All right, cool.
Thank
Well,
you so
listen,
much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dennis.
Let's do it again. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Rick and Ridge Murphy, your ego is not your amigo. Always do your best, and at the end of the day, just remember to let God do the rest, and do not ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we are all connected by water. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.